This is Bobby Okereke, inside linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, and you are tuning into the Blue Stable Podcast.
Talking to you. Welcome back to the Blue Stable Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It has been about maybe 2 weeks or so. We were absent from the mainstream of YouTube and Apple Podcasts all last week. It was a good little chance to take a little breather, of course. We had Destin on official business. He was down in Florida opening up his own business, making millions of dollars. Florida, vacation, cocktails, and everything. Right, Destin?
Yeah, a little short of millions of dollars, if I had to guess. Just a little.
Just a little. Hey, man, wishful thinking, but hey, open the door of blessings for you there in your life. Rashad, I feel like a lot of people, I even forgot what you sounded like, man. I almost forgot the face and the name to put it together. But Rashad McGinnis, back, ladies and gentlemen. The trio, the dynamic trio is back, Rashad. First off, are you staying cool at work? And secondly, how you been, man?
I would just like to say, around this time of year, I feel like I'm being held against my will at my job. The post office refused to treat me properly, and one of these days I'm going to walk away, just not yet.
You're going to walk yourself all the way to Indianapolis, Rashad.
How's the weather down there, Dustin?
Hey, it's been warm. When I was in Florida last week, the high was 89 every single day. Never got into the 90s while I was in Florida last week. It was hotter in Indiana.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Wow, so Rashad's going to make the jump from seafood to corn. That's crazy. That's one hell of a jump. But guys, today is a special episode because we're coming back at you with a special guest. Now, again, before we introduce him, you guys already know the drill if you've been listening to us for a while. To help us grow, make sure you comment anything down below in the section. If there's a take that you've been waiting to get off and you weren't able to do it last week, drop it down now. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe this video, share it, send it to your friends. If you have children growing up, introduce them to the Colts the right way and the good way. Now, joining the show, Greg Madia. No, he is not the creator of Tyler Perry's Madia's movies or anything, but I do want to ask you, is there any relation, just for all the conspiracy theories out there, Greg? First off, welcome to the Blue Stable Podcast, but is there any relation between you and Miss Madia Simmons?
Unfortunately, to disappoint your audience, there is not. I can affirm, most of my family are Italians up in the New Jersey, New York area. So I can firmly say no relation, but it's good to be with you guys.
Greg Madia, ladies and gentlemen, joining the show, beat writer of the Daily Progress for the University of Virginia, man. First off, if you, I feel like I already introduced you, but if you want to, tell the people a little bit about yourself and what you do before we get started.
Yeah, I cover the Cavaliers in Charlottesville, Virginia, and are with them pretty much all the time. Football, basketball, baseball. The beat keeps me busy, but of course, football is what we're talking about today. And I know you guys are excited to have one of the former UVA standouts.
Yeah, I guess before we even get into the newest Colt, the state of college football right now is just nuts. And University of Virginia just happens to be not in one of these two power conferences already. So, like, where as a outsider of the Big Ten and SEC right now, like, what is it like right now? Like, are you like hoping for a Big Ten SEC push for Virginia? Or are you just kind of just chilling over there?
It's interesting. Every job I've had covering college sports, there's been some kind of realignment story. When I was in school as a student reporter at West Virginia, and then I covered them a little bit after they were leaving the Big East for the Big 12. Then up until this past year, I was on the James Madison beat, which departed the FCS for the FBS and the former Colonial Athletic Association for the Sun Belt. And now, as I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day, if you don't want to cover realignment, you're in the wrong business covering college sports, because it's bound to find your school or your beat at some point. I think it's interesting. The ACC grant of rights is pretty airtight through 2036. So I don't know. I think everybody's waiting on the domino if and when Notre Dame and you guys there, in Indiana are probably more familiar with them than anything else. I think everybody in college football is waiting on Notre Dame to see if they haven't joined a league to this point, so I don't know if they ever will. But I think everybody's waiting for that next, and to see what happens possibly beyond that. And I think the SEC, it was reported the other day that they're going to stand pat at 16 for now. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Real quick, Destin, are you trying to boast for the Big Ten right now?
Hey, I tried to keep my Big Ten bias under wraps there. I mentioned both. I let him discuss whatever. He just happened to be in the ACC right now, so they're
because the way you were speaking, it was like, oh, like we're part of some VIP club that nobody else can get in, and I had to remind the people, who is your team again?
Indiana University. Go
okay,
Hoosiers.
who don't contribute nothing to the Big Ten. All right, so USC, Rashad, is now part of the Big Ten. Fight on, right?
Yes, sir.
Michael's just mad because he can't even get in the club right now in the Big 12, just sitting there at TCU. But it's okay. It's
right.
okay.
Yeah, bringing in $50 million, can't get in the club, right? But okay, we don't need to get into the college aspect of things. But hey, Greg, this is craziness that happens every week. Okay, Destin has dreams of Indiana being on the level of TCU and USC, and they'll never be there. But Greg, we are here to talk about Jelani Woods, Virginia, the Virginia product. Okay, so please take us. What are some of the great moments and memories that you have, and some of the behind the scenes stories that you have to tell about the newest Colt?
Yeah, the one that stands out to me, the rivalry game against Virginia Tech. He catches a pass in the flat. I think it was like an 8-yard touchdown pass, but on his way into the end zone at the goal line, Virginia Tech's defensive back, Dorian Strong, is in position to challenge him at the goal line, maybe make a tackle at the 1 or the 2 and save a touchdown. And Strong just backs out of the way. He goes, it wants no part of the 6'7", 265, 270-pound 270-pound tight end, just completely steps out of the way. At that point, I'm looking at some other people in press row, just like, wow, he decided to get out of the way of Jelani Woods running downhill. And you guys know, you've probably seen enough of the highlight tapes to know that he is big. He can get downhill in that vertical passing game. And that was one of the reasons why he decided on Virginia for his 1 year as a transfer. When he decided to leave Oklahoma State. He told me leading up to Virginia's pro day that when he was kind of evaluating some options and he had some other offers, he wanted to go to a place that was going to throw the football around, going to move the football, going to throw it all over the yard. And Virginia, what they were doing under their former offensive coordinator, Robert Anae, who's now the OC at Syracuse, after UVA's had its coaching changes, what they were doing was spreading it out, air raid style offense. Mike, probably with what you're familiar with seeing in the Big 12, right? So it was that style of offense, and they used him, tight end, split out wide a little bit, split in the slot, and you can see it. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to prove to everybody after leaving Oklahoma State that he could be a threat in a vertical passing game. And you look at the numbers, and you just can't argue with it. The 8 touchdown catches. That was the second most in UVA history for a tight end in a single season. I think only Heath Miller had more. I think he had 9 one season. So to me, you're getting a guy that had a very strong purpose for his year at Virginia, was to prove he could play in the NFL, and he put it to action and was featured in that up-tempo, high-octane offense Virginia was running in 2021, and that really, gave him a shot to win every week.
Yeah, so heading into the combine, I had circled Jelani Woods. I had even put a tweets out that he was like one of those guys to watch because on tape, he looked like a freaky athlete for his size. Now, what he did at the combine was just unreal. I was there live. I was there in the stands watching Jelani Woods run the 40. It just didn't seem real in person. Watching how big he is and how fast he moved. Were you surprised at all about how dominant his combine performance was?
I mean, having seen him as an athlete, I think the numbers, yes, but the fact that he performed well, probably not, just because you'd seen it a little bit in practice and then obviously in games where you see him out in the open space and you're like, holy cow, that's a tight end. That's not a wide receiver running. So to me, the numbers, how gaudy they were, right? The 4.61, you're like, holy cow. Maybe the gaudy numbers, but the fact that he performed well, no surprise there. It's just so interesting too, because you think back to that decision that he made to go to Virginia at Oklahoma State, and he said he really got a lot out of his time with the Cowboys. Originally committed there as a quarterback, right out of high school. Originally committed there, he moved to tight end as a freshman. And then you look at Oklahoma State's offense, and I know they play in that Big 12 that's more air raid style, but Oklahoma State's more 12 personnel than anything else. And he told me, he's like, most of the time, not that he minded doing it, he was blocking. He was pass protecting and blocking in the run game. He told me, he used a funny line when he was kind of explaining, and he's like, Oklahoma State may look different. They may be out of the shotgun, but they're running the same plays that Barry Sanders ran, So I kind of laughed and chuckled at that when he was running me through that. And, to think that, this athlete was blocking was just kind of interesting. But it goes to show, that's something probably the Colts noticed too, is that he does have that in his background, right? He's not just this freaky athletic, type receiver, tight end. He can block. He can stand in there and pass protect if you need him to, because he has that. He has that on his resume also from all that time with Oklahoma State. So I think that's a very interesting point. You get caught up, obviously, looking at the athletic stuff, and you think about, man, what can he do in the red zone when the Colts get down there? But you also can't forget he's going to help you in the blocking game too.
Yeah, I love Jelani Woods, man. In the scouting process, it's funny because I actually compared him a lot to Mo Alley Cox as far as just his physical profile and the way he looked. And then he tested, and I saw him like, well, he's a tier above Mo Alley when it comes to just athletically, athletically gifted. And what I liked about him when I got a chance to watch him was being that fluid for that size. Most of the guys that size, they're a bit stiff in their hips, they're stiff in their routes they run. But this guy can actually move. He actually gives you something after the catch as well. Did he surprise you the way he moved at that size, as far as how fluid he is in and out his breaks, things he can do after he catches the ball? Just the type of he moves pretty much like a smaller guy, but just in a very, very big body.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Got Bush? You definitely do if you haven't tried the best products from our sponsor today, Manscaped. Taking control of your bush is important. These products are so good, you're going to be showing pride in your new bush-free yard. It's a fact that you will have the best kept product on the cul-de-sac. Save big and be the best hygienic version of yourself by using our discount code BStable20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping if you use code BStable20 at manscaped.com.
Yeah, no doubt, Rashad. And I think too it's something that he got better at as this past season at Virginia went along. He gave a lot of credit to Anai, who was the offensive coordinator and the tight ends coach, but also Marcus Hagans, Virginia's wide receivers coach, for helping him kind of crisp up his routes, fine-tune some of those receiver type skills that maybe he wasn't doing a ton of at Oklahoma State. He's running routes, but at Virginia, if you're a tight end in that offense that's wide open, you better run clean routes when your quarterback's looking to throw you the football. So I think he got better at that as that season, this past season at Virginia went along. It's something that he said, he needed an eye in that tight ends room to figure it out and to kind of help him and guide him along the way. So I think that's something too that he's probably just beginning to figure out and scratch the surface on is that fluidity and that natural, that natural kind of instinct as a tight end. You think, only 1 year playing in an offense like that's gonna feature him. Before that is, a blocking tight end. Before that is a quarterback, right? As a high school player. So to me, I think he's kind of just scratching the surface.
Get 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use our code BStable20. It's time you level up with the ultimate bushwhacking tools from Manscaped. Make sure you check that out in the description below, ladies and gentlemen. We got Greg Madia from the Daily Process joining the Blue Stable Day. Greg, I did want to ask you, see, because you got the benefit every Saturday, every weekend, seeing play-by-play, the benefit of having a guy like Jelani Woods on the offense. How did it make life easier for a quarterback to have a guy that size that can move like that? How did it change the way the offense approached their game plan? And how do you think it could benefit in Indy with Reich and Matt Ryan?
Yeah, I think first things first, right? No defense can acclimate and use multiple defenders to cover one wide receiver. UVA did benefit. They have some outstanding wide receivers in their offense. I mean, I think Dontayvion Wicks is a future NFL draft guy. Keaton Thompson may be an NFL guy one day. So they had other weapons in the offense, but having Woods there, what it did was it spread that defense out. You can't put two guys on Wicks. You can't put two guys on Thompson, and you can't put two guys on Woods for that matter too. To be fair, but because of that, they had so many weapons. Brennan Armstrong had a lot of one-on-one matchups when opponents would play man coverage, and I think that's really really important. He's going to make it almost impossible for defenses to leave him, in a one-on-one situation, and you're going to take pressure off your wide receivers when you have a pass-catching tight end like that in the offense. So to me, I think he's just going to make it tougher on defenses, honestly, and that's probably very helpful to a quarterback. And I think in the red zone too. I mean, that's the bread and butter, right? The NFL, when the game gets tighter inside the 20s, when you have a 6'7" guy who can jump, who can run, and you can throw the ball up and give him a shot to go get it. The offensive coaches at that level are smart enough to figure out how to do that. So to me, I think, you're helping your quarterback. You get better in the red zone instantly, and you take some pressure off your wide receivers. So to me, it benefits the offense in three ways.
Because after the draft, I immediately went on here and I said, and I don't think it was too big of a take. Rashad earlier mentioned that, it reminded him of Mo Alley Cox, our tight end one right now. Yep. I came out and said that I think Jelani is already a better pass catching tight end than Mo Alley Cox. I'm not entirely too sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not entirely too sure if you're familiar with Mo Alley Cox, but former Division I athlete at VCU, one of the better power forwards in college basketball at that time. And I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say he is already better running routes and pass catching than Mo Alley Cox. So can you see later down the line Jelani being really a unicorn, something we've never seen at this size, and honestly, not just at that size, but dominating in the league?
I think the possibilities there. I think it really, to kind of go back to what I was saying earlier, Mike, is that he's kind of just scratching the surface with it. He's because he played quarterback, because in high school, because he was kind of an inline tight end in that 12 personnel at Oklahoma State and had the 1 year Virginia to run routes. I think he's just starting to figure out the tight end stuff and could be a really really good pass catching tight end at the NFL level. It said a lot to me leading up to Virginia's pro day. He had told me he thought about 15 NFL tight ends coaches were going to come to the pro day. Not just scouts from teams. He thought tight ends coaches were going to show up. And I can remember him talking to Lunda Wells, the Cowboys tight ends coach, on the field at UVA, and him just being run through the gauntlet. To me, I don't know if NFL teams are going to allocate their resources to send tight ends coaches unless they think they've got something in this prospect. I've been at other pro days when you don't have many position coaches there, and this was different, having all the tight end specific instruction and drills for Jelani to go through. I thought that was very very interesting. Not something you see every year at a pro day, depending on what school you're at.
I mean, I can't imagine how thankful Jelani is this year that he was not a part of the draft cycle a couple years ago, even when pro days were pretty much they were like ran by individuals almost. They weren't in such a commodity. The combine really wasn't the same. The combine wasn't even happening 2 years ago, even. So to see guys like Jelani, who had his best year, obviously at Virginia that last season. So his draft stock went up, but to imagine if that guy would not have gotten the combine, would have not gotten his pro day, like that's just ridiculous to me to think about, and it breaks my heart all over again for the kids that went through that cycle 2 years ago. But we talked about the athleticism earlier. I mean, the numbers were unreal. I mean, he had the most athletic RAS score of, and if you follow RAS at all, Math Bomb on Twitter runs the little metric that goes out for this. He ended up with a 10, flat out 10, the most athletic player at the tight end position ever. Ridiculous. And I just wanted to go back to when we were talking about that a little earlier. Another part that really intrigues me about Jelani is we really haven't seen him play with a quarterback that can elevate his play to a certain extent either. I mean, Armstrong was a better player than Sanders at Oklahoma State. So I will say that, and you saw his production go up in a passing offense with a better quarterback there. He's going to get Matt Ryan year one. Like, what are your thoughts on Woods getting to come in with a future Hall of Famer under center?
A great opportunity to learn, right? First and foremost, above anything else, you're going to learn a thing or two from Matt Ryan, who's had some pretty good tight ends to work with in his career, right? He probably knows what he wants from his tight ends, guys he's worked with in Atlanta who come to mind, right? And then you think about plugging Jelani Woods in. I'm sure Matt Ryan will tell him if he wants something done a certain way. And I think that's an excellent learning opportunity for Jelani. And then you throw in Mo Alley Cox, right? Virginia guy, VCU, different school, but you maybe have some camaraderie there of an older, experienced tight end at the NFL level to help out Jelani Woods. So I think that's twofold. That he'll get probably good instruction. And to me, having been around him a little bit and talked to him a little bit, I get the sense that he's an all ears kind of guy, going to listen, going to pick up things very quickly. Right? He learned that Virginia offense in an off season. He learned that in an off season and became a very, very good player in it. So that to me, I think shows that he's capable of learning and figuring things out. So I think when you throw in a quarterback like Matt Ryan, who knows what he wants, I'm sure Jelani's gonna listen and pick it up.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback right off what Destin just asked and the things you was discussing about Jelani, he's coming into a situation where Jack Doyle's just retired, who played over 600 snaps, last season. And it's a big void, in the tight end room. And there's an opportunity for him to play early. And I really think it take a couple of years for tight end to kind of get adjusted, into the NFL, into the game speed, different things that the team is asking him to do. But he has a unique situation where he can find himself on the field a lot early, just depending on how he's picking things up this offseason and how things go in training camp. Do you see him as somebody that you think can get a lot of snaps early, or do you think it'll take him a little while before he's able to get on the field?
I mean, he was on the field right away for UVN. I know going to the NFL is a little different, right? The offenses are more complex. The schemes are a little more difficult to pick up. And the tight end, honestly, is probably going to be asked to do a mix of what he was asked to do at both Oklahoma State and UVA. So the good thing is he's got that experience. Plus, he's probably going to have to pick up on some more pro-style stuff the Colts are going to ask of him. I think he'll be prepared to run, the routes the Colts ask him to run. I think he'll be prepared to block. But I do think that, some of the nuanced stuff, it may take a while, like it would for any, rookie going into the NFL. So to me, I think, he's very smart. Like I said, learned that Virginia offense in an off season and became, one of their most productive weapons in that offense. So I think he's perfectly capable of learning. His, exposure to different offenses probably helps him in that set. But I do think he's capable of playing right away. How well is a different story, to figure out, how he fits within the offense, how he fits within the team. I think that's still, natural things that'll take adjustment, but I think Jelani Woods is perfectly capable.
So all Colts fans have been able to talk about since he was drafted was his athleticism. But what is there that you can share to us about the person of Jelani Woods through any conversation you guys have had, or just from covering Virginia this past year? Like, who are Colts fans getting in Jelani Woods, the person?
Yeah, I think it's that determination factor, right? And you're getting a really good guy who, I guess we'll start with the good guy aspect is, he left Oklahoma State, but had nothing bad to say about Oklahoma State. Appreciated his time there, has good relationships with the coaching staff, at least from what he told me, and former teammates. So, sometimes you get the transfer portal situation, and there's a reason guys are leaving, right? I mean, there's a big reason why guys are leaving. This situation was as simple as it sounds. From what Jelani had relayed to me, was that he was looking to play in an offense that would get him the ball downfield because he wanted to prove to NFL scouts that, he was worthy of getting scouted, getting looked at, and having a shot at the NFL. His determination, that's what comes in here, is he picked up that Virginia offense, absorbed it, created some chemistry with the quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, in their first year playing together, and found a way on the field and succeeded big time, right? I mean, not just a guy who caught a couple of passes, 8 touchdowns, 598 receiving yards. I think it was 13 plus yards per catch. So showed he's capable of doing exactly what the NFL scouts wanted to see. Knew he had to do it. So he kind of bet on himself with leaving Oklahoma State. It paid off for him.
I mean, I have a question that I wanted to ask too.
Sure.
Do you think the fact that he was a former quarterback, it allows him to kind of see things differently out there on the field? It has to be some kind of advantage for him to be able to know what it's like, to know what a quarterback's thinking at pretty much any given time, and to be able to help his quarterback out as much as possible. Do you think that translate over to benefit him at the tight end position?
Oh, for it can't hurt for sure, right? I mean, I think you've absolutely hit a good point there. And it's not like he had offers from just one school to play quarterback, right? South Carolina offered him, Michigan offered him. So it wasn't just Oklahoma State who thought he could play quarterback. Of course, he inevitably moved to tight end, but he had others that thought he could play quarterback. And he knew it was probably what was best for the team, best for his career, and that move from quarterback to tight end. But yeah, I think he certainly uses his experience as not only a high school quarterback, but his, the little bit of quarterback he did play and the experiences and practices he did have at Oklahoma State to help in his transition to tight end and receiver. Having that knowledge of the offense and all the different reads and responsibilities a quarterback is supposed to be able to manage. I think that's not lost on him, and he knows how much stress he can take off a quarterback by being a really good tight end.
I'm sure he bulked up to play tight end.
Oh yeah,
but can you imagine Jelani Woods right now under center? Not even in the NFL, just against some of these college kids on defense. Because if you go around the college level, there are some small linebackers. Even like I think that's one of the biggest differences when you see player size metrics from the college game to the NFL is just how much smaller some of those guys are. So to imagine Jelani Woods under center with some of these 6'1", 195, 210 line,
spooky.
Oh
His
my gosh,
knee would be driving into the center's calf. Like
some of these kids would be having nightmares.
That would be very weird. That would be a very weird look, but
I'm telling you,
Destin put all that in our heads.
Find that highlight of him against Virginia Tech, the touchdown. You'll see the defensive back just move out of the way.
I was actually watching it when you brought it up and was talking about it. I was actually watching it on the side, and it was so hilarious just seeing him make a business decision. Like, you know what, I'm just gonna check out of this.
You know what? It's the first quarter. I'll take this one off and hopefully get him the next time.
I mean, Jelani's like a video game player, the type of guy you would create in a laboratory. I want him to be this tall. I want to be this strong, this fast, catch like this. His ability to catch in traffic too is something. I think anytime he's going to get these one-on-one matchups, especially when he learns the nuances, like you said, the intricacies of different routes to run, where to sit down at in the zone, different things when to break off his route, he is going to be a matchup nightmare, man. He has that type of potential. That's what I see when I look at him.
Yeah, something else I think that's interesting. You guys might want to know is when he was training for the Combine Pro Day, he worked out with Charlie Kohler, the former Iowa State tight end, Greg Dolchich, the former UCLA tight end. So they had a really strong group of tight ends for this class, and he told me, just being around those guys and they could kind of pick each other's brain a bit. And that tells you kind of what Jelani's all about, right? Always trying to learn, always trying to figure out, what are other really good players doing? What are other, tight ends doing? I think that kind of tells you a little something about him that, he wants to be really good, and he's not complacent just because he has the size and the athleticism, that probably could show up and be really good, right? And give him a chance to be good. He wants to be better than, just what his size, brings and gives him at the most basic level. So I think that's something to really remember and know with Jelani is that he's always going to try to get better, always going to try to learn something.
Yeah, man, seeing him in that Wake Forest game, that first touchdown he caught, the safety literally just bounces off of him, and Jelani just walks in the end zone. I said, this is unreal watching this guy. Some of this guys,
especially like the college DBs, as you guys know, like a lot of these college defense are going to play 5 DBs now because especially against Virginia last year and under an Eye's offense, against an Eye's offense, because UVA is going to try to spread you out. So they'll have 5 DBs plus like 2 smaller linebackers that can run because they're trying to cover everybody that Brennan Armstrong can throw the ball to. So like when you get Jelani Woods in a mismatch against like an undersized linebacker, not only is the linebacker smaller, he's not as fast. Like that's not fair. So it'll be, I'm really interested what the Colts do and how they scheme it up and try to get him in some favorable matchups, especially in his first year.
What do you think day one? Like if there was one trait where you saw in college, you said, man, that will really help him as a rookie. What would that trait be in your mind that helps him day one?
I think it's the fact that he's played in so many offenses. He played in, multiple offenses as a college player, right? I think if you come in with at least some background of some different things, right? You haven't been only exposed to one offense as a college player. I think that helps you big time. I've seen it with other players. Guys who have been exposed to more tend to learn a little bit quicker and can pick things up because they've been forced to already in their careers. So to me, I think that's going to help him, the mental side as much as anything else. As far as the physical traits, I mean, the ability to run like that at that size, like you can't teach that, right? You can train and train and train all you want, but unless you have the size to do it, that's a trait that'll play at the NFL, I would think.
To quote a buddy of mine who's a scout for an AFC team, when he was talking to me about Jelani Woods, he said, fast guys in college are fast in the NFL. He said you can't say that about every single trait in college, but he said fast guys in college they're going to be fast in the NFL.
Yeah, man. I got a bit of a curveball for you, Greg.
Sure.
The Colts are going to be in the market for what it looks like for a wide receiver in the draft next year, and Dontayvion Wicks. He's a guy, when I was watching the film on Jelani Woods, I just kept seeing number 3 pop. And I'm like, who is this kid? I had never heard of him. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of Virginia college games last year until I turned on the tape to see Jelani Woods. And so when I was watching him, I'm like, this guy's a playmaker. He is a legit playmaker. Dude's a baller. I looked him up. I seen his numbers. He had over 1,200 yards. And it was a lot of big plays. I think he finished with 9 or 10 touchdowns. Can you tell me a little bit about him? The coach may have interest in him come next offseason.
Yeah, no, totally fair question. I think with his ability to go up and get the ball, right? He's not the biggest guy. He's probably 6'1", 6'2", but man, can he jump and he can go get the ball at its highest point. And I think what was really interesting about last year was he was coming off an injury, right? Came off a year in which he missed a whole season in 2020. And he had some high expectations going into that year, but felt like, if he could rehab it and get back and get healthy, that he would be able to do what he thought he could do the year before. Now in 2021, and he did it. I mean, he was unbelievable, catching everything and all different types of routes too, post and go routes and balls in the middle of the field. I was just so impressed with him. And he took advantage of some one-on-one opportunities too. They had a unique offense that was going to let their playmakers go make plays. But I think his ability to catch the ball is just pretty ridiculous. The go up and get it the way he does, the concentration. I think you guys might have seen the play at Miami that he made when the ball's bouncing all over the place and somehow he comes up with it. He was telling me in the spring after a spring practice that he still gets people that'll send him that highlight and he'll look at it and laugh and he'll be like, I still don't know how I caught the ball. I just saw people running to celebrate with me. But he goes, you just got to stay concentrated, and that's what he tried to do. And I think this offseason his focus has been some of his route running stuff is what he told me. And the wide receivers coach Marcus Hagans, who worked a little bit with Jelani Woods too, was part of that and trying to refine some of the routes Wicks runs. I mean, because he said, some of the routes I ran last year, not the cleanest, and they've got some different types of routes this year for him with the change in the offense. So that's one thing I think if you're going to scout Virginia guys is to pay attention to. Like I said, air raid under the previous regime. Now with Tony Elliott, the former Clemson offensive coordinator, coming in, they're going to go to a more balanced type of system. You're going to see some more NFL type stuff, I think. I know some of the route stuff has changed. I know some of what they're going to ask the receivers has changed. I think you're going to see guys like Wicks play some inside and some outside. I think they're going to try to move them around a little more than the previous staff did. So I think that's something to watch with Wicks.
One of the things we're trying to do through this series of talking to these beat writers for these NFL Colt rookies is some sort of prediction element. I'm not going to ask you to do a player comp. We did that with some of the Cincinnati guys last a couple weeks ago. But tight ends, to me, are one of the hardest player comp positions when it comes, just because every team uses tight ends so differently. There's just so many different roles to put them through depending on the team and the scheme. So I'm not going to ask you to do that. But the area where I feel like Jelani Woods can get on the field year one, especially, is in the red zone. So if you had to call your shot right now of how many touchdowns Jelani Woods ends his rookie season with, how many would you have to say?
17 games. I'll say 6. I'll say 6 touchdowns year one. Is that fair?
If he ends the year with 6 touchdowns as most likely a second tight end or maybe third, depending on how he goes, I'll buy his jersey. I'm putting that right now. I'm putting it on the podcast. Today is July 12th, 2022. If Jelani Woods has 6 touchdowns, I'm buying the jersey.
There you go.
I can see it. It's not, I don't want to say crazy because he's going to get like I said, the snaps are there. With Jack Doyle leaving, and Mo Cox, I'm pretty sure he's going to stay around. Both of those guys got over 600 snaps apiece, Jack Doyle and Mo Cox, last year. So they was basically, Mo was a starter last year, in a sense, you can say. And there's a lot of snaps to go around, man. And if
especially because he can block,
exactly.
Especially because he can block. I mean, a lot of teams run a one tight end's going to heavy block, the other is going to be receiving. The Colts really don't do that. I mean, maybe it was a luxury because Jack Doyle and Mo Cox were both solid blockers, but I just can't imagine Frank goes away from that. Coach Reich likes for those guys to be able to block. It's a heavy run team at times. I think Matt Ryan's going to add more in the pass game to where we're going to see more of it. But the real competition there for that second spot is probably Kylan Granson, who's a second-year tight end, who is a little smaller for the tight end position. A lot of people compare him to that Trey Burton mold of a tight end, smaller end, receiving type. But I'm not sure if he is going to be at the same level of blocking that Jelani Woods can bring you year one. And if Jelani Woods can earn that, if Jelani Woods can get on the field for blocking, how do you take that big of a man off in passing situations? There's just no chance.
Frank's all about advantages, man. So you don't want to tip your hand by your personnel. So if I can give you a legit blocking and receiving threat, two of those guys, and Mo Cox and Jelani Woods, wouldn't I rather roll that out and then instead of rolling out a Mo Cox and Colin Granson, where this was most likely a passing situation because they don't like to run the ball with this guy in the game. So I definitely see it. And like you said, it was a luxury last year having Jack and Mo that can block. I think he might have stumbled upon that same luxury this year by having Jelani Woods and Mo Cox.
And see, I don't even think with that, I know come preseason time, a lot of fans are going to want to see, Jelani Woods touchdowns and everything. They're going to want to see what he can do in the red zone. I think with a guy like Jelani is where Frank Reich, with that type of player, you're going to have like specific plays drawn up. I don't think Frank is going to like tip his hand and show other teams in preseason what he drew up for a certain guy who we don't see every day in this league. So I'm definitely anticipating until week 1 to truly see red zone snaps for Jelani Woods, like preseason. Let's just see if he can block. If that's the case, then he'll be on the field. But I think 6 touchdowns maybe a little stretch, but I'm here for it. If there's anybody here that's for a stretch take, it's me on this show. I'm here for it. So 6, I also factor in the fact that Matt Ryan has played with some great tight ends before. Tony Gonzalez, Austin Hooper.
Matt Ryan has made some good tight ends. Matt Ryan, before. Yes. I'm not trying to poop on Austin Hooper here. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yes, you are. That's exactly what.
That's exactly.
I mean, he may play in a certain place in Tennessee, but I'm just saying. You look at Austin Hooper's number with and without Matt Ryan. Got a big contract from Cleveland because of that. Had a career year, Pro Bowler,
and then went to Baker Mayfield.
Goes to Cleveland, and last year his stats were worse than Mo Cox's. Last season, Mo Cox was the number 2 tight end here. I mean, that's all I'm going to say is that Austin Hooper, I've not seen him without Matt Ryan, but I've seen Matt Ryan do that for so many different tight ends. The Falcons had productive tight end play no matter who was out there because of Matt Ryan's ability to throw to the tight ends. Now, when it comes to Frank Reich tipping his hand, if we're in the red zone and a defensive coordinator sees Mo Cox and Jelani Woods out there, if it's a passing play, I think they know what's going to happen. I don't think it's a Frank Reich problem. I don't think that's. I just think they're smart. Oh, those guys are both 6'5" and huge. I bet they could be throwing it up to them right here.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many ways you can go. You can hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor.
That's the element that adds to it.
I mean, it also depends on what set they're in offensively. They could be in bunch. They could be spread out. It just depends on are they starting to play with their hand in the ground. If we're on
the 5-yard line, all I'm going to say is if we're on the 5-yard line and Mo Cox and Jelani Woods are both on the field and we throw a screen to one of them, I'm going to be pissed.
Bro, what about shovel pass? You like shovel pass, don't you?
I'm not
return the shovel pass.
If we're on the 5-yard line and it's a passing play and they're both on the field, if we don't at least have one attempt at throwing up to either side, whoever has the weaker defender in that moment, I'm gonna be angry tweeting.
We could just put Jelani Woods at quarterback and that'll solve everything.
Right. Hey, what if it's a left-handed shovel pass?
Michael, stop bringing up past sins,
okay? Greg, we're having fun, man. We did not have the greatest year at quarterback this past year, and it feels good to have a legit quarterback. And like we say, and we're talking about Jelani, a guy like Matt Ryan, like Destin said, has made the life of tight ends so much easier. I mean, even like what Destin said about tight ends as rookies coming into the NFL, look at the year Kyle Pitts had. And Kyle Pitts is Kyle Pitts now. We've never seen anybody like him come in year 1 the way he did coming out of college. But the fact that he started out a little slow, but then him and Matt just gained that chemistry. And he was the number 1 there because Calvin Ridley was suspended, betting on games and everything, doing what he was doing. But I just want to see Matt, how does he elevate everybody? Not just Jelani, but that's my biggest look going into this season. How does he make everybody's life better? And if Jelani Woods is going for 6 touchdowns, that's great.
See, what Greg forgot to mention was 3 of them were passing. Like 6 total touchdowns is what Greg was saying.
There we go.
Oh, and 3 others are quarterback sneaks.
6 total. He didn't limit. He's not limiting himself.
I think he did have one. I think he did have one carry at Virginia, but I can't remember if it was for anything. So there you go.
I bet there was at least.
I bet there was play. It was like one. It was like 1 yard.
There had to have been a broken tackle in there. No chance one guy brought him down.
No.
Gang tackling. That's what you need. You need the gang tackling to bring him down, man.
Absolutely.
Oh my Lord. Well, Greg, man, I'm not entirely sure if you have anything else on Jelani that you want to talk about. If there's like another story that not a lot of people know that Colts fans you think would like to know, would be interested in knowing, the floor is yours, man. But before we get you out of here.
No, I just think the Colts are getting a really quality person who's going to be eager to learn and figure things out at that level. You know, he's, like I've said before, he's a guy that bet on himself by transferring to UVA to get to make sure he got a shot to show scouts what he's capable of, and it worked out. So I think, you know, that said, that probably gives him some pretty good momentum going into this rookie year as he can try to learn and try to figure out how to succeed at the NFL level.
17-game season. What do you predict? You know, help the Colts fans out. You know, give them a little something to walk away from this interview with here. The last one, because you've given us some good things. Give us one more. What do you predict the Colts record is going to be this year?
Colts record this year. I should have brushed up more on my Colts depth chart knowledge. Let's see. I will say, I don't know. What are we thinking? 7, 8 wins, 9 wins, somewhere in that range. Is that fair?
Oh man, we suck,
Whoa.
huh?
12
If
wins,
we win 7, 8,
wins.
or 9 games, then Frank Reich and Chris Ballard are gone. I'll just say that.
We'll
14
be fine,
wins.
man.
How's that sound? Is that better?
Hey, now we're talking.
So you guys didn't let him finish. He was saying 7 times 2.
Oh, right,
stop.
right.
We gotta
There we
stop
go.
interrupting Greg. All right, he's having these moments. We just gotta let him finish them.
My bad. I wasn't the greatest at math.
All good, guys.
All right,
you,
guys.
Greg.
Well, again, Greg Madia. Shout out to Greg, man. Y'all can find him if y'all are Virginia Cavalier fans. Go find him because his info is going to be in the description below. If y'all want to go find his work, again, beat writer for the University of Virginia at the Daily Progress. Okay. And again, you know, best of luck to Virginia and everything this year. I guess since Destin said it, hopefully they get into one of these 2 mega conferences, get more money and more boost in NIL and all that stuff because we know where this game is headed.
We're hoping for you. We're hoping for you guys. You're off that ACC TV contract. I'm hoping for you.
We'll see. It'll make work interesting, but we'll see.
Don't team up with the Pac-12, man. Just don't do it, okay? I know that's been thrown out there, but there's no way in hell that's happening. So other than that, Greg, once again, have a good one, man. Thank you for joining the Blue Stable podcast, by the way. And guys, we will see you.